Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Steve Erickson with EliteHockeyShooters.com.
I'm Ron Johnson, xHockeyProducts.com and .ca. And thank you for joining us today. And as we did in the last episode, Steve, we talked about this thing called the chip backhand. And you know, it's great for younger players and it's great for older players. And today we'll talk about what we call a chip and turn, or like a chip wrist.
When you're doing the chip and turn, the one thing that people have to understand is that when you're doing it, you've got to also protect the puck with your body, with the offside of your body, so you can actually get it right.
Well, it's, you know, protecting the puck really is the turn. Really, we're going to talk about in the following example here in a second is that really it's the involvement of the top hand. So younger players, they develop a bad grip, and really this is the point of having a proper grip in the top hand. And again, you know, I'm going to show you that in an example here in a second, but really what we're doing is getting the wrist now involved in generating a little bit more power. So while we use the open blade, remember there's two shooting styles, there's a closed blade and an open blade style. We're talking about how now that we can get the blade to close, which creates blade speed, which is for a backhand. This is a little bit, increases the range a little bit of the shot.
Yeah, blade speed, more velocity on the shot as well when it goes through.
Absolutely. So you see in the following examples here what we're talking about.
This here's a good example of the wrist action. And what we're really looking at here is the action of the top hand. And we're really looking at this area here. And we can see that on the side of the stick that the thumb is ready to activate the inside part of the shaft. And what we're doing here as we turn, we can see that the wrist snaps. You see how the wrist comes outward? So we can see that the wrist rotates outward. And what that does is that drives the blade over. Now, in this instance, this player's doing the shot in close. And what this does, this gets the puck up on the blade fairly quickly. So we can see here that as he chips it, see the puck is now lifting up on the blade. We can see down here. And then as he snaps his blade over, this gets the puck up a lot faster in tight. But this is just to get more velocity and to make sure that the puck stays on the blade a little bit more dynamically. This shot is used a little bit further out, but just in this example here, I wanted to show how the wrist action drives the blade over. We can see here that the wrist snaps, and that's what you want to focus on, is that wrist action, the activation of that thumb on the inside of the shaft. The bottom hand is loose and really allows the shaft to almost rotate through the palm.
The objective here is by keeping the pucks closer together is to limit the amount of back swing or windup that a player has to generate power. And what we're forced to do in this situation is to drive straight down, and you can see that there's a yellow stripe here I put on my blade just to show the strike point. And on blades that have a larger curve, this is absolutely critical. What we're focusing on really is the activation of the thumb. As I mentioned in the other video of the young player, we're trying to get the wrist action. We're trying to get the thumb to work properly in the backside of the shaft, and the snapping, the rolling over the wrist, and the power generated to the forearms and up here in the shoulders. We're trying to take the power from the forearms and the blade speed and turn that into effective shooting. And this allows us to shoot from compromised positions. So as I'm rotating more and more like this, I'm taking away a lot of the core power that can generate laterally across my body. And this is now forcing me to even use more wrist. As you can see, my wrists are really snapping through here. And we can see in this position here that my hand isn't really tight. The thumb of the bottom hand acts more like a pivot point or fulcrum, and it works in supporting of the shaft as it rotates over. I'm going to rotate in a little bit more of a compromised position here. And again, this would be used maybe off a net drive or where I'm protecting the puck. Again, all the power here comes from the wrist. As you can see, my wrist in this area here is snapping over. And this requires a lot of reverse curls for the players that enjoy their off-ice training. You can see that the wrist action here that's critical for this shot. I'm going to rotate again from a little bit more compromised position. Again, the idea here is to be able to generate power from even an unstable position by snapping the wrist. So see, there's a wrist snap here. There's a lot of speed generated off the shaft and the blade, and this allows you to generate power from most uncompromised positions in the game. This is an example of another chip and turn, and really this is what we call like a backhand slap shot, but really the chip is the same. We're driving the blade down into the puck, and what we're looking for here is the activation of this hand, and as this bottom arm pulls through, we're going to get this wrist to snap. And as we can see right here, the forearms, that the wrist is really activating the bottom part of the shaft to get blade speed on this. So again, it's a strike. So this is a backhand one-timer, and you can see the flex on the stick, and we're really activating the wrist here to finish off and generate that power and keep the puck on the blade a little bit longer, which creates a little bit more power and more velocity.
A little bit of a progression from the chip shot, Ron, but also not only the chip shot, the progression that we looked at, the hand positions as well. Explain to us.
Exactly. Well, as we said, we got the thumb involved. Now, really what we do, when we talk a wrist shot, remember we talked about a two wrist shot, is really the action of using the blade. So it's blade speed. And in the old days they'd call it nobody's going to go down there and say, I took a great wrist turn shot. So remember Foster Hewitt in the old days, sorry folks, we're aging ourselves here, but he used to say it was a great wrister. And everybody kind of knew what that kind of was. Back when I was shooting, you turn your wrist over, you knew that your wrist would get the blade speed. So really the same thing happens on a backhand. So when we do a wrist, like it was called a chip turn, is basically to get a younger player to understand the chip to get the puck in action. And then what we do is we involve the wrist to get the blade speed, and that increases the range. So the progression from this one, which we'll talk in the next episode, is going to be on the wrist backhand. So this is a natural progression that a player can do to go from a wrist chip, if you will, into a wrist backhand.
All stuff that needs you to practice, and practice makes perfect, as Mom used to always tell us all the time. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve Erickson.
Thank you for watching.